Hello, folks. Welcome to Aberrations in the Wild with Bill and Cecil.
Sorry, folks. I'm just wound up today.
We're
Hi,
back.
how you doing? Yes.
Look at this guy. He was looking good.
I'm alive.
He's alive.
Yeah, do like in Black Twins. You ever see them do their podcast? Black Brothers.
Oh, yeah. Those conservative guys.
Yeah, their dudes are awesome.
Those
I
guys
love
are funny. And they're jacked, man. Those are big dudes.
Oh, yeah, I mean to tell you.
And they are funny guys.
Yeah.
How you
and
been?
They're straight up, straightforward, and honest. I love it.
Yeah. You been good?
Been trying to be good.
I'm glad to hear it. You ever been to Florida?
Been there a few times.
You ever been down to the Everglades?
No, have not.
Ever see a skunk ape?
No, I haven't.
You ever smelled a skunk ape?
No, I haven't.
That's a big thing about skunk apes is how they smell. Skunk apes is how they smell.
This is true. I've heard that.
My son asked me today, why do they smell? I said, well, they're hairy. They live in Florida where it's hot and humid, and they walk in the swamps. They stink.
I would say that would pretty much cover it right there.
That's about got it.
Yeah.
Everglades is big, Cecil.
Oh, man, it is. Well, that's not just in Florida. It is huge in Florida, but it goes over it all the way to Louisiana.
7,200 square miles.
Yeah.
Total population inside that is, I think, 220,000 in 2023.
Oh, I thought it was more like about 52 people.
Well, in the entire Everglades.
Yeah.
Which averages about, I think, 30 people per square mile or something like that. It's not a lot of people, which is not a lot of land either.
This is true. Not a lot of land. There's a whole lot of water, a whole lot of grass, reeds.
Yeah.
And
hard to tell them apart. You can't tell if you're on the ground or on just nothing.
Yeah, I've seen shows where they're walking on the grass, and they think they're walking on grass, and it starts sinking with them and stuff. So I can buy that easily. And I've seen a number of shows that back that statement up quite a bit.
I've been down there, and I'll tell you the one thing I do not want to do is walk in the water. I don't want to walk in the swamp. I don't want to walk in the water. All kinds of critters.
Well, I don't either. I was in Louisiana in the swamp area there. The house I lived in was on reclaimed swampland, and just about 60 feet out the back door was the swamp, literally. And I used to go out there and go hunting, and I felt like I had to find dry places to walk on to feel safe.
What were you hunting down there?
Gator.
I love good gator.
Yeah.
There's pig down there too, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There's pig down there, and that's generally speaking a little further north, though.
And west. I know over on the other side of the Gulf, they're lousy with them over there.
Yeah, it's terrible. Infested with them, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to discover the skunk apes were in that area as well. And,
absolutely.
Because it was nothing to see alligators around. As a matter of fact, I shot one in the front yard.
In the front yard.
Yeah.
That's quite a day.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, man. The dude had a mouth. He was just, and I said, well, bye. and we had a nice roast after that rascal.
Oh, they're good.
They're they're delicious. But the skunk ape, though. I mean, I was always confused about the skunk ape because I've seen different shows about them, and the idea that I got from the shows that I watched was that they were generally smaller, and my guess was that they probably weren't associated with Bigfoot. But just about a week ago, I was watching. I think is on Prime Video, a show about man and the progression of man and so forth. And this guy, he didn't make any beans about it, man. He was just straightforward, pointed out that Gigantopithecus was there, and that these so-called buildups from the chimps to us weren't buildups to us. They were just separate species, and there weren't men of any kind. And the Bigfoot is not a man of any kind. It's part of the primate family and fits. And if you look at the Gigantopithecus, it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. So anyways, he was talking about that, and then he discussed the skunk ape, and he said that the skunk ape is actually a Bigfoot, but it's just a smaller stature because of the climate.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, you and I were talking on the last podcast about like cows up north versus down south.
Yeah.
They're bigger. They're bigger up north. I think it stands to reason that a Sasquatch would be too. They'd have to be faster. They would probably spend more time in trees and whatnot because of the gators and the snakes.
Yeah.
Different types of food to eat, a lot hotter climate. I mean, all of those things would lead to a smaller stature creature.
That and the ground they walk on, like we were talking about the reeds and such, and walking on that. I mean, if you're weighing 900 pounds and walking on that, you're going to sink.
All the sand is quicksand.
Yeah. And so it makes sense that they would be smaller down there. Looking at all the facts and everything, it's logical anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know if that guarantees anything, but it certainly makes sense to me.
Plenty of food for them down there.
Oh, God, I guess.
Especially a smaller one.
Well, I mean, what is that called, a nutria?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those rodents.
Yeah, them dudes are big as a doggone bloodhound, weighed 35, 40 pounds, and they're kind of like a great big rabbit-looking mouse. And not a rabbit, but a rabbit-looking mouse. But anyways...
the guys from Duck Dynasty like to eat that.
I've heard that. Yeah, actually I heard him talk about that.
Well, I shouldn't say all of them, but Jace. I remember particularly Jace, which I don't really watch that show much, but I just remember him hunting them because he liked them. He said they were good.
Well, yeah, and I mean, think about it, man. Squirrels or rodents, just like they are, and they're just a different kind. And would I eat a squirrel?
I've definitely eaten squirrel.
You bet your life on I'd eat squirrel.
My cousins have eaten nutria. I just never. That's one I just haven't. I've eaten a lot of weird things, but that's not one of them.
I've never had one myself, so I don't know what they taste like. And they might be just fine. But there's people that eat possum and raccoon, and the raccoon, the way I hear it, is really greasy.
Yep.
So it's like. Maybe you need to develop a taste for that or something.
You ever had duck? It's the greasy like you would think of a duck being.
I've never had duck in my life.
You're not really missing much.
I think I wanted to try it, but I've never had it.
There's perfectly good chicken right there.
Yeah, there's this is that and turducken.
Turducken.
Yep. Turducken, go figure. And I don't think they have those going wild in the Everglades, turducken.
I mean, probably not.
But saying there's 3 different birds stuffed in there. But what can a Sasquatch do in the Everglades? I mean, literally, what can it do?
Eat and sleep.
Eat and sleep and go around and just wreak havoc. Mm-hmm. Hide and run and or whatever.
And for the most part, they could do it without ever seeing a person.
This is true.
There are monkeys in the Everglades. Did you know this?
I didn't know that. Well, I know there's none natural. Let's put it that way. There has been some natural. Escaped.
Yeah,
and there's some down there.
And they've bred. When I heard that, I wasn't sure. I had to fact check that because I didn't want to say it on here and then look sillier than I already look on here.
Well,
But turns out there are, and it's exactly that. Escaped pets and a lot of things down there. I think we mentioned this before. Like the hurricanes come through, it takes out PetSmart.
Yeah.
It takes out the zoo. It takes out all of that stuff, and those animals go somewhere. Well, the Everglades is pretty good habitat for all kinds of critters.
Yeah.
So there are monkeys that live there comfortably.
Quite, I'd say.
There are non-native snakes that live there.
Oh, yeah, there's pythons.
Big ones. Pythons.
Boas.
Yeah. Anything that you could think of. You always know that guy that's like, oh, I can get you any kind of animal you want. He makes a phone call and you've got a cobra in your bedroom. So anything could be loose down there and most things can thrive.
This is true, and water moccasins are commonplace down there. Those are native to the area. And in Louisiana, I was sitting there fishing beside a bayou, and of course, those of you don't know, I mean, most of you probably do know, but bayou just means French for long river. And so don't have rivers in Louisiana, they have bayous. But anyways, I was sitting there beside the river fishing, and my boys were sitting under a tree, and it was shady. And I called out to them to come over this direction for some reason. I don't remember what it was. I was going to have them do something. And they hadn't walked but about halfway over, and a water moccasin fell out of the tree right on top of where they were sitting.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it's quite commonplace. And then garfish down there. I'm sure there's garfish in the Everglades, too.
Those things are vicious looking.
They are some kind of terribly vicious looking, and
Dinosaur.
they're almost impossible to catch. They bite through fishing line like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of needle sharp teeth, and think about this. The biggest gar I've ever seen. I was at a pier fishing, and as I walked in here, I thought, okay, it's kind of a strange looking crocodile, alligator skeleton, and it was partial, and it had some flesh on it and everything. Then the more I looked at it, the more I realized it was a huge garfish.
Yeah.
And what was left of it was about 7 feet long.
Yeah. They're massive.
Yeah.
They say that's where a lot of the sea monster myths come from, is from like an alligator gar.
That and the sturgeon.
Sturgeon.
That and the sturgeon creates a lot of the stuff. But then, I think there's also possibilities of other stuff out there along with those.
Absolutely. There's no way we know it's in the water.
Well, it's kind of like, there was a car running around the other day, and that was blue, so that had to be the one that was making all the noise, because it was making noise that day. Well, the problem with that is there are other cars, other colors that have loud pipes, et cetera, et cetera. So there's other animals out there potentially as well.
Absolutely.
Just because you see the one doesn't mean it covers all of them.
Right.
And kind of like the old adage, all Chevys are General Motors cars, but not all General Motors cars are Chevys.
Correct.
And some people are going to call in and say, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. I still don't know what I'm talking about. And it doesn't matter to me because I got no pedigree. And so, but anyways, there are distinctions and separations and such in all of these things in life, including animals, critters, all kinds of critters. And the Bigfoot would fall within that category as well as anything else, that there's 10 and 12, some even 14 feet registered or reported rather, and some as small as 6 and 7 feet, and that's not in the swamps, but in the Everglades and in the swamp area, they're 5, 6, 7 feet. Probably is the biggest one I've ever heard of down there.
I would think a 5-foot Sasquatch in the Everglades you would never know it was there, and it would be lethal.
Yeah. How would you? Seriously speaking, to give you an idea of what it's like in the Everglades and in the swamps. Like I said, the house I lived on was on reclaimed swamp. One evening, about 10 o'clock, heard a loud crash out front, and about 250 feet past my house was a tree that had a Chevy truck wrapped around it when I went outside. And it hit so hard on the right front that it ripped the ring off of the rim.
Wow.
Okay. And the steel ring and the tire were ripped off and gone. Wow. Now, the next day, I decided I wanted to go see if I could find that just because. Just because, And I went probably 350 feet up into the swamps, and I couldn't find hide nor hair, no sign of it whatsoever. And I know it had to be there because they didn't pick it up when they pulled the truck out.
Yeah.
I was there when they did it. So it can be well hidden easily.
Wow.
That's an inanimate object you can hide like
Right. Something not trying to be
that.
evasive.
Exactly.
So I got a sound today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. It's a Bigfoot from Florida, which a Bigfoot from Florida is a skunk ape. So today's sound is a skunk ape. I'll play it for you. Tell me what you think it sounds like. Anybody that I've played the sound for the most part, has one thing that they think it is. So
Okay.
I want to see what you think, okay?
Got my eyes closed so I can't have any other influences. I want to be all ears.
All right, here we go.
It sounds to me like Bigfoot yell out of the mountains.
Yeah. The only thing I've heard is it sounded like a train whistle. Okay.
Well, now, it did have a little bit of that whoa to it,
But you're in the Everglades.
but that, in the Everglades, and the fact that a train whistle also has, all right, they have a clear, non-vibrating sound.
Uh-huh.
That had a little bit of vibrato.
Well, like a vibrato.
Vibrato in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, with train whistle works off of steam, so they kind of come down to a bit, not way down, but they'll crescendo down before they disappear.
Right.
This doesn't really do that.
No, it didn't.
Not like a whistle would.
Not a train.
No. I mean, I can see why someone would say that, but
I mean,
it doesn't
it sounds similar to one.
It sounds similar to one. It has characteristics. Now, the interesting thing with that video is with the sound is there is video along with it. It's a short, and I'll probably post it on our channel. I've got a few things coming to the channel coming up. A few exciting things, I think. But I might post that video. It's a short. But the guys they're in the Everglades. You can tell they're somewhere that you're not going to have a train sound.
Right.
So I don't know. It's the Florida skunk ape is a different breed. There is a picture. I wanted to try to I don't have a way yet to post the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to hold it up close to the camera, but it didn't really work well, and you can't tell that the picture looks real. So I have to find a way to, maybe I can print it. I don't know. Or there's a way, I'm sure there's a way we can get it up there. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is it's in Florida. It's behind kind of a palmetto tree. It looks like an orangutan.
Crouched in buttocks to the right and head to the left, and the palmettos here.
Yes.
I've seen that picture.
Interesting thing about that picture, too, is that creature has canines. It doesn't have flat teeth. It has canines, like more like an orangutan would, or even a chimp.
Well, see, an escaped orangutan could be in there.
Yeah,
and we wouldn't know it.
Man, could you imagine just walking through the swamps, fishing pole, looking out for gators and snakes, and all of a sudden an orangutan walks out in front of you?
Yeah, and if you don't know, all right, you see orangutans. They sit around and they just kind of loaf and they kind of make funny faces.
Yeah,
and
look goofy. Mm-hmm.
Look goofy, and they do things with their offspring and mates and friends and all this kind of stuff. But if you had any idea just how strong those things are, it would freak you out. They're like 3 times as strong as a big, strong man.
Yeah. Gorillas are stupid strong. Yeah. Orangutans, though, and they have longer arms and weird muscle. Interesting videos. Kids don't do this, but adults, if you're interested, watch some aggressive orangutan videos, and it will terrify you. To think you're in Florida and you're just you're out with the family and an orangutan steps out of the forest. Oh my Lord! You're not going to get away.
Oh no, not if he wants you, he's going to have you.
Yeah. Better hope you got a banana or something to throw at him.
A whole bunch of bananas.
Cecil, I know you got to get out of here today, buddy.
I got a few minutes yet.
Okay, great.
I cut myself a little bit so where I could go about 5:15.
Okay, good.
And unfortunately, it got in late because of the traffic, but we'll stretch this a little bit.
Okay, good. I've been talking about doing a few little segments on some different cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to talk about the thylacine. I think that one's kind of timely because they may have found some.
I haven't heard for sure, but I've heard they have the potential.
Now there's a photo going around from New Zealand. It's like somebody spray painted their dog's ass. But sorry, excuse me. That's how mad it makes me. It makes me going to cuss on my family podcast. Somebody spray painted their dog, and they took the picture in pretty good light. I mean, it's a pretty good picture, but it's clearly not a thylacine. Yeah. But there are Forrest Gallant. Check out Forrest Gallant. He's pretty sure they're there, and he's probably the most trustworthy person. Was a National Geographic photographer. You know, he's a no BS kind of guy, and he's been tracking them down, and he's pretty sure they're there too.
And if that's the same guy, I remember him talking to some natives in that area that they said, "You want to see a thylacine? No problem. We'll take you out there and show you where the den's at."
Yeah.
And they never did actually see the creature, but they did go out and find dens and so forth. And there have been a number of pictures that have shown up that imply that this is a thylacine. And one of the things you want to remember when you're looking at those, that they do appear to be a dog, but the jaw structure is made a little bit different.
More like a big cat.
It's got a long, skinny muzzle.
Very wide open.
And it opens really, really wide. And
it's carnivorous.
Yeah.
That's marsupial.
And then the haunches, if you look at that, if you see the one that's purported to be the last one known, and that's a farce because I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyways,
that was the last one in captivity.
No, that wasn't.
It wasn't? That was 1941?
It was one after that, and they had this in captivity and took pictures of it and said this is the last one, but there was another one or two still around. Okay. And I read an article about that just about 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah. And
timely.
Yeah, so it's like, and all this stuff really fascinates me. And the denial that things cannot be, okay, goodness gracious.
And why is it so hard to bring it back? Like, why is a picture? Like, hey, we've got a picture of thylacine. There's some over there. They're good. Like, we need to make sure they're okay. That's not enough. Yeah. No, we need like a dead one. Well, what if there's only one left? Why do you got to have a dead one to take it off the...
We got a picture of a guy robbing a guy.
That's enough.
And that's enough right there to put that man in jail. So if that's enough to put that man in jail, a picture of a thylacine standing there in front of you is enough to believe that he exists. You don't have to put it in a cage or put it in jail, but enough to believe that it exists. And just because it was thought to be extinct doesn't mean it was. It's like that other bird that they've been bringing back, a prehistoric bird. I think it's about 1.5 feet tall.
A dodo?
No, it looks about like one.
Does it?
But I can't remember the name of it to save my life. But it's they showed pictures of it, and it's banded on the legs, so it's been captive.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a real bird, and it's really there, and it was thought to be extinct, but they somehow or another have brought it back into existence, and so forth. So. And they're talking about bringing the mammoth back, from the cloning processes and stuff.
Would it still be a mammoth, or would it be like a hybrid mammoth elephant?
You know, I think it would be a hybrid, but to be honest with you, I really don't know because it depends on how much of the DNA of the elephant and the mammoth were the same.
Yeah.
And if they cut in at the end point of where they tend to be separate. If they cut in there and spliced in, then it would be truly a mammoth.
Okay, all right.
But how can we know that?
Right.
You have to be able to get the DNA and get it readable before you can
How do we know it's not a elephant with a hair transplant?
Or a wig.
Or a wig, a really good wig.
That's a big wig, dude.
You ever heard of the coelacanth, the fish?
Oh, yeah.
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 They were extinct for, 50 million years? Oh, nope.
60 million years.
No, there's a bunch of them. You can go to Dorothy Lane Market and order some coelacanth. Like, they're there. They're everywhere. But for 60 million years, they're extinct.
Yeah. And they said, but then in 38, they had a fisherman, a trawler, brought up a fish that they just couldn't identify.
Mm-hmm.
And through the pictures later on, they determined that it was a coelacanth. And then it was maybe the 40s or 60s, there was divers going down and actually filmed a live one swimming around.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, whoa. I mean, that's obviously as a real coelacanth.
Yeah, yeah.
So all of these can't be's I don't buy. There's always the possibility they're right, but just because they think that doesn't mean they're right.
Well, there's all of these aberrations. There's all of these aberrations, and it's not just, the Bigfoot thing. The Bigfoot thing is something we like to talk about. We think it's out there, and we know there's a lot of other people that think it's out there too. But there are just some things that don't make sense.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna give you an example. All right, I've shown a few people this, folks. This is a little impromptu, but I think this will be kind of interesting right before we close.
Cool.
I'm gonna get my Google out. I gotta get out the Googler.
I love seeing strange pictures.
So what we're gonna Google is the latitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza. You ever seen this before?
Well, I'm not sure.
Latitude of...
Indirectly, I know I've seen it, but I'm not sure I've seen what you're about to show.
Okay. Now, do you have quick access to your Google over there?
Yeah.
We're going to make it a little more interesting. I want you to look up the speed of light.
Oh, yeah. What's the speed of light? What is the speed of light? Wow.
That was my reaction.
299,792. That's incredible.
Tell me how they built the pyramids. We don't know how they built them, first of all, or who built them, to be quite honest, because they are not tombs for the pharaohs. You know how we know they're not tombs for the pharaohs? Because there's no pharaohs in there.
No tombs whatsoever.
No tombs in there.
They never found a tomb of any kind in it.
What's more likely is it's a power station.
And that is entirely possible, especially when you think about, I've seen some science experiments in chemistry class, and where they take different chemicals and it emits energy and light and different things, and some where they pour this crystal clear liquid in there, and they pour just a few drops of this other crystal clear liquid in there, and it goes flash. Yeah. It's all of a sudden it's blue. And then they put 3 or 4 more drops, and flash, it turns red. Put another 3 or 4, and a flash, it turns crystal clear again.
Wow. Now,
there's some crazy chemical reactions going on there. And I can't remember what this was called, but I've seen an experiment where they create energy from chemicals. And if you think about it, I mean, that happens with coal, gasoline, naphtha, et cetera, all the time.
Not to mention your pyramid's coated in limestone.
Yeah.
Initially, and then gold.
Right.
Also, you've got the Baghdad battery.
Yeah.
Which is not far away. So these are some of the other apparitions. The Baghdad battery was a battery they found, 2,000 years old?
Thereabouts, yeah.
The time of Christ, maybe, or earlier. You put some grape juice in that thing, you can light a light bulb.
Yeah.
Or 2 or 3.
Yeah, and just as a side note, did you know you can take an iron rod and a copper rod, put them about a foot apart and drive them in the ground and connect 2 wires on them, and you can light that same light bulb up?
I've heard of a guy that does grounding. He does exactly that, but then he puts it on his bed when he sleeps. He says he sleeps better and he wakes up feeling better. It's called grounding.
Could very well be. I've heard of that. I don't know how it works, but I just, matter of fact, I just heard it a few days ago.
Timely, once again.
Yeah, it's weird how that stuff is starting to come to light. But anyways, going past that, you know, when you watch Ancient Aliens and they talk about how this was done and everything, potentially done, let's put it that way, and how they think. And it's like if you put this certain chemical down there and then it creates certain things and creates microwaves. And it's like, whoa. And people, do you know how the microwave got invented?
It was an accident, wasn't it?
Total accident, because there was a guy cleaning out a microwave antenna, all right? And he had a chocolate bar in his pocket. And while he was cleaning that out, the chocolate bar melted from the microwaves. And they experimented after that and discovered that microwaves would heat food.
If you don't know how your microwave in your house works, I highly recommend Googling it, just to see how it heats your food and then determine if you're going to continue using it or not. I use mine sometimes.
Well, I use mine quite a bit. I really don't care about what they say and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. They talk about, this woman told me that microwaves change the molecules in food.
No, they don't change them. They heat them up.
They make them active. They do change them in so much as they make them active.
They change their positioning.
And become cooked. But you do the same thing when you stick a flame under it. Right. Or not necessarily the same thing, but a similar thing anyways.
Yeah. I like the air fryer, which is, again, real similar.
And I like the air fryer, except that I can't keep the dang thing clean.
That's seasoning and flavor, Cecil.
That's Cecil not knowing how to use it. That's straight up.
I love my air fryer. I cook all kinds of things in there.
Well, we're going to have a big talk about that one then.
All right.
And because I had one out in the garage. I took it out there a couple of years ago and left it out there because I was moving to Troy and wound up never getting it back in the house again. Mm. And to be honest with you, I think I'd just about as soon use it as what I have. And but that has nothing to do with skunk apes, does it? And,
I bet the skunk ape would appreciate I said it again, skunk ape. Skunk ape would appreciate an air fryer. Heat up some of those clams and lobsters.
He'd probably appreciate,
crabs.
big BK big fish sandwich too, and like I do. But I can't eat the darn thing anymore because it's got too much sodium on it.
You and your sodium today.
Yeah, I'm on a. I was telling him a little bit ago. I've cut my sodium down so much. I buy sausage has 1 tablespoon of salt in 100 pounds of mix. Okay, and I've cut it back so far that sausage patty made out of that sausage, I can taste the salt in it.
You'll be able to smell salt soon.
Oh, well, I think I could probably do that now.
Think, Cecil, if you get to the point just from restricting it how you could smell salt, think of how much a Bigfoot could smell a salty, sweaty human.
This is true. I mean, it's...
We're just people, and our senses are awful because we're half alien.
Well, even if we weren't half alien, we still have extremely weak hearing, weak sight, and weak smell. Yeah. And maybe not so much weak touch, all right? But maybe that too. But I do know our hearing and sight and smell is nothing compared to most animals. No.
That's why we had to get smart, or we wouldn't have survived.
Yeah. So with a Bigfoot, if it's out there, if it's real,
opposable thumb,
and it has critter senses, and stuff. It could hear us and smell us coming for a long ways that we would never know it.
Yeah, which if you go back, like we were talking about, the smaller skunk ape in the Everglades being unstoppable. That's kind of what I mean. Like the things that are a danger to us aren't as much a danger. You think of a skunk ape out there, you're like, well, what about the snakes? Well, he hears them, or he smells them, or he sees them. What about the alligators? He knows where they are. He's not going to get, and they know where he is too. Well, it's not like a person out there. He's part of that ecosystem, so the dangers are different.
And then going one step further than that, even if the doggone snake does catch the skunk ape, think about how strong these critters are.
Yeah, it's not
all right. So if he grabs it by behind the head and squeezes, that thing is not going to be able to swallow him, and it may even crush him to death.
His skin's probably thick enough that a bite isn't going to be as big of a deal. And I'm sure, like, if all wildlife that ran into each other in the wild was attacking each other, there would be no wildlife left. So we see the example, the exception to the rule. When you see the alligator and the snake, battling it out on those memes or whatever, that's the exception. Like, that's not what happens in nature. In nature, unless one of them's hungry and looking for a meal, they're probably going to avoid each. It's two predators.
Well, they talk about the crocodile and the alligator being the two top successful killing machines, and they have like 60% failure rate.
Yeah.
And
the caiman should be up there too, because it's just as deadly, but it's fast.
Oh yeah, I just forgot it.
Yeah. Did you know there are hellbenders in Ohio?
I'm not sure what a hellbender is.
It's a giant salamander. They can get up to 2 feet long.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
They're endangered. But I read this article this afternoon. See, these are all aberrations. This is all fun stuff that we like to talk about that we're going to start bringing in different forms. Hellbender here in Ohio, they won't release what lakes and streams because they don't want people to go and get them. But there are a few with a nest currently, and then a younger male in a stream here in Ohio somewhere that they're monitoring to kind of. Yeah. These hellbenders, they lay eggs. It's like a salamander. They lay eggs, and then the eggs hatch, and then the juveniles disappear. We have no idea where they go. Yeah. All of the ones that we've seen or found are either eggs or mature. They have no idea what happens to them as juveniles.
Yeah.
But think like a caterpillar that turns into a butterfly. You never know what happens. Like, who knows what happens to them? They could become Bigfoots for 6 months, and then they go back to a salamander. I don't know. And they're not sociable, so you don't see two of them unless they're mating. After they mate, the female's gone. She's like, I'm out. Just like in my part of Dayton. That's how they are over there, too. After mating, the female's gone, the juveniles split, and then they're just mature later on. It's a weird thing, and it happens right here in our backyard. And who knew that there are hellbenders in Ohio? Who knew what a hellbender was?
Do you know where the term butterfly came from?
No.
I imagined at one time that since they flutter by, that maybe they were called that because that's what they do. They flutter by.
As good a thing as any.
Therefore, a butterfly. And so I thought, well, that's my imagination running wild until I read an article just last week.
Really?
And that is, according to that article, how they got named.
Flutter by.
Yeah, they flutter by, so they called him a butterfly.
The names of things are weird. One of my favorite comedians in the world, Mitch Hedberg, he talks that he wanted his job to be the person that names things. What does that do? Well, it makes toast. That's a toaster. I'm going to lunch. What does that do? It freezes things. That's a freezer. I'll see you Tuesday.
That's a joke. That's a jokester.
Yeah, it's a jokester joke.
That's what they call me all the time. Folks, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up. There's some new things coming very soon, so stay tuned. We have an episode that we've already recorded that'll probably be out later today from our last one back, and then this will be coming out next week, and there's going to be a few little odds and ends. So, Cecil, I'm glad you're back. I hope you do good, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. It's good to be back and good to feeling halfway alive again.
Happy Halloween and happy November, everybody.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.